ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Writers Mindscape. No, I will smack you.
No, okay, I'm not going to do it.
Oh, good.
Mindscape. Worth it. Worth it. Totally worth it.
Wait until we get off air.
All right.
Anyway, today we're continuing on with our new series, topic, section. I don't know what to call it anymore.
Yeah. It's just...
We're going into religions.
Yes.
Last week we broke down and to kind of define what a religion is. Today we're going to be diving into how to create them.
Yeah.
We're going to actually be focusing more on the difference between beliefs and doctrine, because there is a big difference. But
right.
When a lot of times it can be easily to mistake them as one thing.
Oh,
when
yeah.
they're actually two different things.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
So, Adam,
yes.
how would you break the difference between?
All right. So, for me, doctrine is the rules of the church, not necessarily the rules of the religion.
Okay.
Doctrine is also, how the church conducts its business, and how the people should act within that church's business.
Interesting.
That's the way I've always looked at it.
Okay, and then beliefs?
Beliefs, well...
we already talked about beliefs before, but like, how do you compare, how do you define it to make it show it's different?
Well, I mean, beliefs is the outlook of the religion itself.
Okay.
How people, how you act within the religion itself.
Because the way I break down doctrine is because, well, I have a degree in Bible.
Well, of course you do.
So I kind of understand this stuff pretty well. Is that doctrine is what the church believes based on some kind of ancient text.
Okay.
Or it could be new text based on what you want, if it's starting with a new religion.
Right.
But that's it. Someone will take something. Either it could be, you can also do word of mouth. Yeah.
Prophecy,
something like that, and it says, based on this is what how you're supposed to do it. It's not the doctrine will say this is what the text is saying, even though it may not.
Right. It's the interpretation of the text.
That's what doctrine is. I would say when you said the rules of how church interacts, that would be a separate thing in my opinion, how I would break it down.
All right.
The rules are based on the doctrine, on how you should act and conduct yourself.
Oh, okay.
But then you go, because you're building everything from the doctrine up for like customs, rituals, ceremonies, all that stuff come from the doctrine. Where beliefs is something, a belief can be believing in this doctrine.
Right.
So that's what the difference is. But when you believe in the doctrine, it can be seen as one thing. That's where the confusion can happen.
Oh, okay.
For that. So that's why we're talking about the difference between them. We're not going to be talking much at all about beliefs just because we've already covered that.
Just a few times already.
We are going to be focusing more on the doctrine in general because we haven't talked about that really.
Well, not yet.
Not in deep details.
How does your religious teachings work within your society, within your your character, your story.
Yeah. So let's give an example, a real life example of this, just so you can just kind of see the difference in what we mean by this.
All right.
The three major Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity,
yes,
all have different doctrines.
Right.
So they each look at it in different ways. Judaism does not acknowledge the New Testament.
Right.
All their beliefs come from the original Old Testament, or the Torah, as they would say, because it's not the Old Testament.
Yeah. It's the only testament.
Yes. Where Islam has the Quran.
Right.
And that comes from...
Oh man, that is an old text.
Yeah, I don't know much about the Quran and its origins, but again, it's another text.
It's about the same age as the Torah.
Yes. It's their books on what happened based on the divide. Basically,
the stories of
there's a lot of
people from that time.
There's a lot of the same stories from the Bible, Old Testament, New Testament, the Torah, or in the Quran, but it's taking the Islamic view on it.
It's a different view, different world view.
Exactly. In the case is that they are the rightful heirs to the land of the promised land
Yes.
from Abraham, and they would say it for that, whereas the Jews say the same thing
Yes.
for theirs. So that's the big difference.
Yes. And that causes conflict.
Yep. Whereas you have Christianity, who says no, the new stuff, the New Testament, is priority.
You're both
over.
wrong. We're right because
Yep.
America.
But
Wait, what? No.
yeah, I know, I know.
What? Huh?
But the main thing is that they signed more with the Jews, but they added on,
Yes.
saying what they believe is no longer doesn't no longer apply because of Christ.
They're like, hey, your prophecy came true.
Yes.
We're living up to that prophecy.
Where the Jews would say, no, it hasn't.
No, it hasn't.
No.
Not really.
So that's a good example there. A even better example on
Yes.
this is taking Christianity itself and dividing it into the Protestants and Catholics. Huge difference in doctrine.
And then the Lutherans. And the Lutherans
And
at the
then
same
when you
time.
break down into the Protestants, you have different denominations that have different doctrines.
Yes.
They will agree mostly on the big issue things,
Right.
but it's the smaller things
Yeah.
that they will disagree on. A good example is this: the return of Christ. When is he coming back? Some will say there will be a thing called the rapture.
And then he'll show up after.
And it'll happen, and there'll be 7 years of tribulation. Others will say, no, that the rapture is going to happen midway through the tribulation. Others will say, it'll happen right before he comes back. And then there's people who say, you guys are nuts. There's no such thing as 7 years of tribulation. It's just going to be a tribulation time. There's no amount of time frame, and Christ is going to show up at the end.
He gonna show up when he wants to show up,
Yep.
okay?
So it's all based off, they all pull verses from the Bible.
Yeah.
A lot of the same verses, but they're
No.
how they interpret them to back up their point of view. So that's one of the things that we want to point out is that you can have one religion
And there's different interpretations of it.
and you can have all these different issues on there. And if you're doing a religious story and you want to have lots of conflict, you can get those tensions high up there
Oh, yeah.
based on the difference between interpretation of a simple line. They could agree on everything else, but this one text
Exactly.
changes everything for certain groups, and that could be the whole thing.
That's where your tension comes from.
Yeah. And then going from there, we'll just kind of... So we now have that.
Yes.
So we have the example of what doctrine is.
Okay.
Okay. So now we're going to look at just briefly how the doctrine affects the rest of religion. Because we're going to dive into rituals and stuff like that in other
Oh,
episodes.
yeah, definitely.
But we want to just kind of observe how a doctrine will observe that.
Yes, we'll say that your entire religion is based upon a warrior who stood before the gates of hell or the gates of the demons and held them back or closed them. And you're like, oh, we worship this guy because he did something awesome. Well, your doctrine and your beliefs that go around it is protection.
Yeah.
You'll see that, this is a society that protects something. You know, they may not realize it, but that big ornate door in the mountain actually is a door to another dimension where demons have come through.
Yep.
And due to the previous actions, maybe they don't need to have a warrior step up and be the guard.
Maybe they have to have someone volunteer
Yeah.
or forced volunteered
Exactly.
to be an actual sacrifice.
To keep the doors closed.
Yep. Their life force will be the power to keep the door shut
Right.
for another 100 years or something like that.
Yes.
So
Whatever the prophecy, or maybe there's a prophecy that, once every 100 years, a champion will stand forward. You have an entire religion based upon a prophecy.
Yep. It really builds up from there. Again, some real world examples of this is in Judaism, you were to obey the Sabbath,
Right.
not work. Like at the
Man.
time of Christ in the Bible, it was to the point where there was a certain amount of steps you were allowed to take in a day before it became work.
Yeah.
So it's like So it goes to show you how extreme you can go with your doctrine as well with there.
Yeah.
But you were to observe. It's supposed to be a day of rest. You can relax, body heal.
Yeah.
For that.
Are you going to have religions that have a very hardline
Yeah.
doctrine?
So when Christianity came over to take over, they took that obey the Sabbath and took it
Yeah.
later on, but said, no, you must now go to church on the Sabbath.
Yes.
That is obeying the Sabbath.
Yes.
You're
Attend the service.
But here's some things you can have if you want to have some fun with this and show misinterpretations between language barriers and stuff like that. A good example is this: the Sabbath for Judaism
It's Saturday.
is Saturday. It's Friday 6 p.m. to Saturday 6:59 and 59 seconds because they were under the lunar calendar.
Yeah.
So that was the Sabbath.
That was the end of the week.
Yep. We have it on Sunday, which is the beginning of our week.
Or the end of the week. Depends on how you look at the calendar these
Yep.
days.
Oh yeah. And here's another thing you can look at it this way is the reason that was just because I can't remember what pope did it, but a pope actually was ordained with the power, as according to the Roman Catholic Church, to physically move the Sabbath to Sunday.
Oh, okay.
So which actually causes problems for those in the Protestant Church who can't stand the Catholic Church but still go to church on Sunday.
Yeah, everyone goes to church on Sunday.
You just by saying the Sabbath is Sunday, you're saying it is the Catholic Church had that.
You know that that the entire break of the Protestants because of the Church of England from the Catholic Church, it was because one person wanted a divorce. That's all it was.
Yep.
Sometimes, I mean, and that's another thing for your thinking. Take a lesson from history.
Yep.
And maybe you have a division in your religion. If you have a single church, maybe you have a division in there that is based purely upon the actions of one person.
We'll get into that kind of stuff in more of the government setup because the reason why
it was a very governmental reason.
It was a very governmental reason and a way to maintain his power in his family. You don't have offspring. Your goal is
I need some boys.
Yeah, he needed a son to pass it down to. His wife wasn't giving him a son.
Nope.
So he wanted a divorce.
And
the church said no.
Yeah.
So he said, screw you.
Fine.
I'm making my own church.
I'm the leader of the church now, yo.
Yeah. And I get a divorce. Goodbye.
And I grant myself this. Wow, that's so weird.
I know. So it comes down with that. We'll get more to probably tie this in a little bit more as we get into those areas. But just to give you an idea of one of the things, the last thing I want to close off on is how dogmatic is your religion's going to be? Because you can have someone who's like have doctrines is very important to the church and the people who are there, but they're not very like. If you break this one tiny thing, you're going to get stoned out after the ceremony.
I mean, at the same time, you could have a very, militaristic religion where it's like you break the rules, you go to jail.
Yeah.
And they control everything.
Yeah. So it's really kind of showing around like do you have a very big dogma? And it's like, nope, this is how it is.
Right.
Or is it, no, okay, we believe this stuff.
It's like, hey,
we're not going to be happy if you go against it, but we're not going to also kill you for doing something very tiny.
You ate a lobster on a Friday. We're not going to kill you for it.
Before 4 p.m.
Yes.
Only after 4 p.m. on Friday can you eat lobster.
Exactly.
Yeah, you guys can be frowned upon. Maybe
it was 3:57.
Maybe ostracized for a few days.
Someone's going to make fun of you.
Yeah, something like that. So just one of those things you can think about.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add before we close off? Sign off. My bad.
Regarding religions in a story, history is a big friend of yours.
I'm noticing a theme here lately.
There are so many stories in history that you can go with.
Oh, very true.
We have done so much on this planet already. Yeah. Everything you can just look at and go, well, what goes back to your questions? What if that society became the leading society in our world today?
Yeah.
What would our world look like?
Yeah.
You've got What if the Spartans actually conquered the entire world? What kind of world would we live in today?
What if there were dragons during the
During the Middle Ages.
No, during the I think it's the French. Oh, it's like
The French Revolution?
No, it's the war between the French and England.
Oh, the 100-Year War.
Something like that. I
Yeah,
can't remember.
that was the 100-Year War.
Yeah, there's a specific
Which
name.
wasn't 100 years. They've
Yeah.
renamed it, but for the
Yeah.
longest time, it was the 100-Year War.
Yeah, I can't remember, but like how that changed the world, the war as itself.
Yeah.
It's actually a story, a book series out there.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
I can't remember the name of it, but yeah. So anyway, we have that. Since you made it to the end of this podcast, give us a thumbs up.
Yes.
Let us know down in the comment section what you thought about the topic of doctrine and the difference between beliefs.
Clickety-clack.
Do you agree with us?
Yes.
Do you disagree with us? Tell us your reasons why for either. Just comment.
Please?
Please? Pretty please?
Please?
With a cherry on top?
Okay.
While you're down that way, be sure to subscribe,
Ding.
click the notification button,
Ding, ding.
and become an outcast.
I'd become a subscriber to our channel.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go.